Enterprises today are using hundreds of SaaS applications. Are you reaping their productivity and innovation benefits, or are you lost in the sprawl? Enter Savvy Security. They help you surface every SaaS app, identity, and risk, so you can shine a light on shadow IT and risky identities. Savvy monitors your entire SaaS attack surface to help you efficiently eliminate toxic risk combinations and prevent attacks. So go on, get savvy about SaaS and harness the productivity benefits. Fuel innovation while closing security gaps. Visit securityweekly.com/savvy to learn more. High-value employees have become the path of least resistance and a key source of compromise for corporations. Attacks against executives can compromise their personal accounts, enable corporate breaches, and can even compromise their reputation, wealth, and physical security. Black Cloak understands that an executive's personal digital footprint is crucial to enterprise security. We provide concierge cybersecurity solutions tailored for executives, safeguarding their personal data, devices, and online presence. Experience peace of mind knowing that your team is protected with Black Cloak Digital Executive Protection. Secure your digital life with blackcloak.io. Visit us now at securityweekly.com/blackcloak.
On the Security Weekly News, I try to scan and produce a quick look at some of the major stories to help you keep up with what's going on in and around the industry in a short format. Myself, Aaron Leyland, Josh Marpet, and other guest commentators provide greater insight every week. I'm Doug White, and I hope that you'll look for the Security Weekly News in all of your favorite podcast catchers and subscribe for the latest content.
Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Semperis. Semperis. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me today for this interview is Jim Doggett, the CISO at Semperis.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
So, talking about CISOs today.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. So, the evolving role of the CISO in the business of cyber is the headline we have here, and it's been a really interesting role over the years, right? You know,
Yeah.
And it still continues to be. It's I think probably one of the most versatile roles or wide roles depending on the company. Like a CISO at a vendor can be very different than a CISO at a maybe a retail company or something like that, or a CISO at a small company versus a big company. For you, where do you see this role going? Where is and maybe a little insight on the trajectory in your experience.
Absolutely. And again, I probably need to go back just a little bit of history. I've been doing this a long time, and I completely agree with you. The evolution of the role has been actually not even small; it's dramatic. When I first started, it was largely a CISO role was largely purely a technical role.
Yeah.
You worked under a CIO typically, and your job was to just do security and not report on it, not try to understand how it affects the business. You were just purely there. You found something was wrong, you wanted to fix it.
Yeah.
And then as we started to evolve, all of a sudden, we don't have enough budget to do it all. So then all of a sudden risk got added into that equation a bit.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you have to balance. We can't do everything. So now we put together plans.
Yeah.
And we'd risk base them and then try to sell them to the board and the senior management. And we sort of made it to that next level. And that brings us up to where we almost are today. But I think now it's taken the next step where the CISO role is almost becoming a business role.
Yeah.
You're now not, again, the last role I held at a large corporation as a CISO, I did no technical work at all.
Yeah.
It was a political role. It was a selling role.
Yeah.
But I spent all of my time trying to understand what the business was trying to do, and then where from a security we could support that business, as opposed to putting guardrails around and not letting them do that. So to me, it's very different, and it does require a different skill set. I mean, you have to learn at the CISO level now is how do I explain things purely in English or in business terms, and that just that's not easy to do, and it's a very different role. And politically, you're playing, I hate to call it games, but it sort of is.
Yeah.
You're spending all your time saying, well, I need you to do this, I'll do this for you, and it becomes almost a game at that point. And all at the same time, you still then have that team below that you got to get all the technical work done.
Right.
So it's the evolution has been really fascinating to me, and it's actually more fun now.
And it's not evolved in a vacuum either. The importance of cybersecurity to the business has increased quite a bit as this role has evolved, right?
No, it is. And it's not only has it evolved, but also I think the recognition by the boards and the companies that it is that important is finally grown. And again, you can hate or not hate, but all these major cyber incidents are what's causing this.
Yeah.
You take advantage of every.
A lot of people say thanks to ransomware for,
No, in our company especially, that is, I would, if it wasn't for ransomware, I would not have joined probably Semperis.
Really?
I grew up in a world where, and again, Semperis is into Active Directory. I grew up in a world where I didn't worry about Active Directory.
Yeah.
It was just a piece of infrastructure that worked, and I never thought about it.
Right.
That evolved over time to now. If that infrastructure goes down, and the whole company goes down.
Yeah.
So.
And the CISO role, I think another thing that we used to see is somebody maybe down at a director level would get the CISO role. And again, that's another thing that's evolved where we do actually see CISO roles at the executive level now more often.
Yep.
And like you said, more of that business enablement role. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
You mentioned political, but how can the CISO role help the business? How can it be less of like a loss prevention or fraud group? More assisting sales, assisting the company grow and sell more.
Yeah, that's. To me, it's I would characterize it almost as enablement. In other words, if you could take away a risk that something bad will happen,
right,
then hopefully the business has the confidence to take risks and head in new directions to grow the business. If you're worried about security the whole time and that something may go wrong, then all of a sudden you're not doing that.
Yeah.
Probably the best example I can give of that would be resiliency today. Mm-hmm. And again, historically, CISOs didn't worry about keeping the business going. They worried about theft of data.
Right.
Now you've got ransomware where the resiliency and keeping the business operating is big. That is a huge issue to, again, I don't care which business unit you go to within a company, they all care about that.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about, let's take a hospital or a healthcare chain. If the resiliency doesn't work and you get an outage, how do doctors actually prescribe? How do they treat patients? How do they do surgeries without all that data? And my time there in the healthcare, the doctors I talked to said the only surgery they would do if their systems were down would be emergency surgery, nothing else.
Yeah.
Liability's too high.
And that's interesting because we've seen sometimes business continuity is part of the security team, and sometimes it's under operations, it's separate. So do you feel like today it's important that business continuity, disaster recovery, all that should be under the CISO?
I don't think it necessarily needs to be under it, but the CISO has to include resiliency from a cyber attack as one of their key functions. And I'd even make a case today, it is the most important function they have.
Yeah.
If someone breaks in and steals data, that hurts.
Right.
Someone breaks in and
shuts the business down. It's
a lot worse. That's when you get fired and sued. And there's plenty of great examples to go out in right now and see that's happening between SolarWinds and you go on and on there. So, I think it's absolutely an area that, again, most CISOs were not trained in this space. Mm-hmm. They were preventing, detecting, and fixing, but not recovery.
Right.
And recovery is what it's all about right now.
And so I've got a good friend who's actually he's at a point in his career where he's looking at his first CISO role.
Okay.
And he's basically done the job of a CISO before. And I know you've mentored CISOs before. So in 2024, what advice would you give him going after tackling a CISO role today?
First of all, think in terms of what helps the business first. You start with that as the problem. What do I want trying to accomplish? Yeah. Then you take.
So you need to understand the business really.
If you don't understand the business, I don't know how you can do the job today. I completely agree. The second aspect, though, from a business perspective, is you've got to learn to compromise. Historically, CISOs and people that came from a technical world, there's a right, a wrong, and no gray in the middle. And you've got to learn a whole lot of gray.
I've known some,
And I've replaced several that's how I got hired as a CISO, because they could not.
Inflexible.
And you can't be that. And ultimately, you got to remember that security, 90% of security is not done by the security team.
Right.
It's done by the business.
Yeah.
All you do is you advise, do policy, and monitor.
Yeah.
You don't actually do the security in general. So,
And just looking ahead, what kind of emerging trends or challenges do you see integrating cybersecurity with business strategy? And how should CISOs prepare for some of these challenges?
To me, it's a pace acceleration. And again, everyone wants to talk about AI today. To me, it's just another tool.
Right.
But it's a tool that accelerates good and bad. So it's not something we can't ignore. But I advise so many, again, a good example is that AI today is like a shiny ball. Everyone's sort of driven to it. But don't forget the basics still. And that's the problem I think too many companies are doing now, is they're chasing the shiny ball, and yet they're still not patching their systems and doing the basics, which you have to still do. So that balance I would recommend for CISOs coming up now. You have to reach a balance of that. Yes, you can't ignore AI. To me, that will certainly be a trend. Machine learning, you can go through all of these things. The other aspect that I think that all CISOs have to focus on is identity. You just don't have a choice today, because with our perimeter almost gone, there is no network perimeter anymore. With cloud, with vendors coming in and customers coming in, you have no perimeter anymore. So the only way, you need to make sure that whoever is logging in as John Jones is John Jones. And they have the right privileges. And that is, to me, the next wave of all the software that's got to come out and all the tools that have to be out there, is how do we make sure whoever's doing work on our behalf is the person they're doing, and they're doing the right things.
Right. Yeah, I just talked to a CISO a couple minutes ago before we started this interview. His works for a large investment bank, and they're already using generative AI. And he's here looking for solutions to help secure their use for it. So, it seems like some of the compromise you're talking about, where you're not going to be able to get ahead of it necessarily. You do what you can, but you can't stand in the way of what the business needs to do or wants to do a lot of the time. We
learned so much from cloud. To me, this and cloud are the same kind of ed rate. We went through cloud. We fought it forever.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you can say what you want, but I mean, almost every large company out there, and even a lot of small ones, said, we're not ever going to go there. It was inevitable. And there's no doubt
and
to
SaaS
me.
Before that.
And you just keep going. There's going to be no difference here. The only thing is, cloud was like a 10-year runway before it became acceptable.
Right.
I think AI is going to be 2, 3. It's going to be something a little different, but nevertheless, you can't fight it. As a CISO, you've got to learn, how do I help the company use it to its best ability? And here at Semperis, what we've just done is put guardrails for the time being. Here's what you can put in. You can use it, but you need to talk about it before you start using it. And what data are you going to put in there? Are you putting confidential data that we don't want in there or not? And there's things like that. So we're just taking a practical approach right now, but over time it will have to accelerate.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Security Weekly. My podcast is Enterprise Security Weekly.
Good one as well. So, pleasure, Adrian.
Thank you.
Very nice to talk with you.
And if you want to learn more about Semperis, you can go to securityweekly.com/Semperis, and that's spelled SEMPERIS RSAC. So Semperis RSAC.
Perfect.
And stick around. We'll be back at you with another interview in just a few minutes.
Welcome to RSA Conference. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Onyxia. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and joining me today for this interview is Sivan Tehila, CEO and co-founder of Onyxia. Sivan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we were just briefly getting acquainted, and I find it very interesting that you came from a military background and became kind of a point person for being able to create security programs in different divisions of the military. And then you transitioned into being a CISO. So I have a question. Most founders develop a company based on what they wanted to have had when they were developing security programs or when they were acting as a CISO. Is that what happened with Onyxia?
That's exactly the story. So I was a CISO myself about 10 years ago, and I used to basically manage the security programs for the different divisions I was responsible for. And at some point later, when I moved to the vendor side and I became a consultant and I worked very closely with other CISOs, I realized that there is still a really significant gap in the way we're managing security programs and the way we're basically measuring security performance. Mm-hmm. And on the other end, companies implement between 30 to 50 security products, and we have solutions on top of solutions, and we're not able to understand how those solutions actually serve the security program, the security KPIs, and by that basically enable the business. And that's really the true or the real responsibility for the CISOs. We're all here to enable the business. And I thought it could be a very interesting thing to be able to build a platform, a cybersecurity management platform for CISOs, not to only allow them to manage all their security efforts in one place, but also to automate the security program assessment processes and to be able to learn and leverage the data they have in each one of these solutions in order to make better and more data-driven decisions as part of their day-to-day job.
Absolutely. Do you take the viewpoint that data is power? I mean, and being able to harness that and being able to use it effectively, is that part of what Onyxia offers?
Yeah, that's the data we collect from the existing security products. That's really the core of the system. We're pulling data from all the existing security tools, and we're basically able to analyze it and map it in a certain way and present it to the CISO without all the noise around. So when CISOs basically defining security KPIs, they can measure them based on data from many different tools. And the way it's being done currently, it's a very manual and time-consuming way. And sometimes companies have multiple people or teams that basically collecting all the data and correlating it and cleaning duplications and all these very complicated processes in order to come up with accurate metrics. And we're basically automating this, and I'm always saying that one of my favorite things is to be on onboarding sessions, because you see all the data coming from all these systems and being mapped and cleaned, and it's very exciting to see the immediate value that the product is providing for companies.
So that sounds to me like it really supports the fact that so many CISO roles are changing. What do you see as the emerging role of a CISO, and how are they being more incorporated into the actual business-driven side?
So I think that's a great question. I think the role of the CISO is really different from one company to another. And the other side of it is that there is no real standard for security programs and KPIs, and most of the CISOs need to come up with their own program and best practices. While we're not necessarily need to do that, we have other great leaders and other great companies we can learn from. And one of the things we did when we started was to speak with around 200 CISOs and collect all the manual Excel sheets they're managing to understand what are these top best practices, what is really common for all of these companies. And that was a very interesting way to come up with this top KPIs and also understand how each CISO can still customize things based on their own way and their own approach. And I think that the fact that we're finally providing them a platform that is basically for them. It's another thing that is very exciting for CISOs, because most of the companies, I mean, we have an amazing products out there in different domains, but often CISOs are, or most of the time, CISOs are making decisions on purchasing products that are not really for them, not really for their day-to-day use. And managing security programs and being responsible for prioritizing risks and efforts, it's their responsibility. And that's really the core part of the CISO role. And I think that now with also new regulations that we see that are coming, like the new SEC cybersecurity rule, this responsibility of the CISO is becoming even more significant, and we'll see more involvement of managers, executives, and boards, obviously. So having the ability for CISOs to create this level of transparency within the organization, so everyone are aligned with security programs and KPIs, and how those KPIs really enable the business and support the business, it's crucial for them.
It is crucial, and it also brings out how important it is to remember that a CISO is a human. There are limitations, there are time factors involved, and I know there's a number of reports from the industry regarding CISOs burning out or needing to exit for a while. So in using Onyxia and being able to give information that is directed to the CISO role itself, do you feel it also helps support the human side?
100%. I think CISOs really had to figure out so many things along the way. And basically this role really have been shaped in the past 10 or 15 years. Absolutely. It's a new role. And if you're looking at almost any other executive in the company, they all have their own management platform, right? We have Salesforce for CROs, Marketo for CMOs, or I can, name many other products, but CISOs don't have this management tool or one place where, they can really present to the world all the hard work they're doing and allow executives to basically be aligned with what's happening. And then because we don't have this level of transparency, if something happened, everyone call the CISO and tell him, hey, what happened? And why we didn't know about this before. And really my dream as a CISO was to be able to wake up in the morning and I'm asking Alexa, hey, Alexa, how is the weather today? To be able to go to one place like Onyxia and ask, hey, Onyxia, what are the top 3 things I should be afraid of today? What are the top 3 things I should focus on today? And how I can really improve my company's security posture by specific actions that I'm taking. And it's very hard to do that when you need to log into 50 different dashboards and figure out...
And they have sometimes conflicting information across all of the dashboards. Of trying to aggregate that data internally on your own burns anybody out. We cannot do that. But what an awesome point. Being able to bring a kind of unified management tool to the CISO, similar to Salesforce, as you mentioned. To me, that's thoroughly exciting. So what do you see as the goal for Onyxia?
I want Onyxia, or I see Onyxia becoming this first platform that where the CISO and everyone else in the company are logging in every morning to understand what is the status of the security. Same as Salesforce, becoming this core management platform where they can manage people, processes, and technologies, and have their strategy being managed, and basically get all the insights they need within the platform itself. And besides having this level of visibility, we're always talking about visibility. It's not just about that. It's about being able to make decisions and get actionable insights out of the platform. So I think I mentioned to you earlier that we just released a new AI engine that basically allows companies not only to understand the current status, but also we're able to predict, for example, when the company is not going to meet their SLA for certain KPIs in a few weeks. So that's where we're going. That's how we're going to leverage the data in order to be an even more powerful platform, not just visibility, but our slogan is from reactive to proactive to predictive. So
And that's huge. I mean, that goes back to all of our dreams, like from the movie Minority Report or from other things where you absolutely adore, because then we all have limited bandwidth as humans. You need to know how to prioritize. But having the comfort of the predictive ability from Onyxia, that's really refreshing to think about waking up in the morning, as you said, kind of like you check your Fitbit, see how your sleep was.
Exactly.
And then go,
Yeah.
how is our posture? What do we need to focus on today? Because your plans from yesterday may have been completely obliterated overnight.
Yeah, and another thing we did was to develop everything we have on web in a mobile app. So CISOs can basically download the Onyxia app on Google Store or App Store and literally log in every morning and just get their insights as they go from everywhere.
Oh, that's fascinating. So aside from Onyxia, are there any other emerging technologies that you feel security leaders would benefit from?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all seeing the impact of new AI-driven platforms, and I think security of AI is something that we're going to see evolving in the next few years. And again, since there is no standard yet for security for AI and how to secure AI engines and platforms, I think this is something that we're going to see evolving, and obviously being used. This technology is going to be used for many other capabilities that CISOs need, including what we're doing at Onyxia.
Absolutely. I'm thinking being able to have Onyxia in their back pocket and as a massive support for very quickly using data to create we're talking about like the daily actionable items. That is thrilling. That's very comforting. And to me, it brings out the ability of all sorts of technologies, but also just human life that relies on technology, and every single website, every single thing that is used the world round.
Yeah.
There are those CISOs in the background that are trying desperately to keep the information correct. And I'm very glad that you're responding to their need. So I definitely want to invite our audience to check out more on Onyxia. And thank you, Sivan, for joining us today. So
thank you so much. Thank you
on
so
behalf
much.
of Security Weekly, to find out more, please visit securityweekly.com/Onyxia RSAC. Again, you can head over at any time to securityweekly.com/RSAC to see all of our conference offerings.